In the barren landscape west of Albuquerque, New Mexico, a discovery was made that would reveal one of America's most disturbing serial killer cases. But the official investigation uncovered far more than scattered remains. What emerged from the desert earth challenged every assumption about predator and prey, leaving investigators with questions that extend far beyond conventional criminal psychology into territories that defy rational explanation. But first, subscribe to be notified about every new unexplained case. It was February 2nd, 2009, on a windswept mesa 15 miles west of Albuquerque, New Mexico. The high desert stretched endlessly under a pale winter sky, interrupted only by scattered sagebrush and the distant silhouette of volcanic escarpments. A woman walking her dog along an unnamed dirt road noticed something white protruding from the sandy soil. The object was a human bone. Within hours, Albuquerque Police Department crime scene investigators had cordoned off the area. What they discovered over the following weeks defied their most pessimistic expectations. Buried in shallow graves across 11 acres of seemingly random desert were the remains of 11 women and one unborn child. The victims ranged in age from 15 to 32. Most had been reported missing between 2001 and 2005, though some disappearances dated back to the mid-90s. All were involved in prostitution or drug activity along Albuquerque's Central Avenue corridor. All had simply vanished without witnesses, without struggle, without trace. Detective Ida Lopez led the investigation. Her preliminary reports, later sealed by departmental order, contained observations that challenged standard forensic protocols. The burial sites followed no discernible pattern that criminal profilers could identify. Some graves were mere inches deep, others extended several feet into the hardpan desert floor. The spacing between sites appeared random, yet aerial surveys revealed an underlying configuration that seemed almost deliberate. More disturbing were the preservation anomalies. Bodies buried at similar depths and time periods showed wildly different states of decomposition. Some remains were completely skeletonized despite being interred more recently, while others retained soft tissue after years in the ground. The desert environment should have created uniform conditions, yet each grave site seemed to exist in its own temporal bubble. The investigation expanded as additional remains surfaced. A task force combining federal and local resources deployed ground-penetrating radar across the mesa. The technology revealed underground cavities that shouldn't exist in the geological formation. When excavation teams reached these voids, they found empty spaces carved into bedrock, with tool marks that predated any known human habitation of the region. Witness interviews along Central Avenue produced contradictory accounts. Multiple sources described seeing the victims enter vehicles on the nights they disappeared, but descriptions of the driver varied impossibly. Some witnesses reported a middle-aged white male, others a young Hispanic woman, still others an elderly Native American man. The vehicles described ranged from pickup trucks to sedans to motorcycles. Yet several witnesses insisted they had seen the same perpetrator, despite providing completely different physical descriptions. Crime scene analysis revealed trace evidence that complicated the emerging profile. Soil samples from the burial sites contained mineral compositions not found in the surrounding area. Pollen analysis identified plant species that had been extinct in New Mexico for over a century. Most puzzling were microscopic glass fragments discovered with several sets of remains, volcanic glass that matched no known deposits within 500 miles of the burial ground. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Maria Sandoval, a 57-year-old woman who cleaned offices along Central Avenue, contacted investigators with information about the night one victim had disappeared. Sandoval claimed she had witnessed 23-year-old Michelle Valdez entering a blue pickup truck outside a convenience store. But Sandoval's account contained details that troubled the investigating officers. She insisted that immediately after Valdez got into the vehicle, she had seen the same woman walking down the street in the opposite direction. When pressed, Sandoval maintained that both versions of Valdez appeared identical and were present simultaneously. She had watched one drive away while the other continued on foot toward downtown Albuquerque. Laboratory analysis of bone fragments revealed cellular anomalies that forensic pathologists struggled to explain. Several victims showed evidence of rapid healing in bones that had been fractured years before death. The healing patterns suggested regenerative capabilities far beyond normal human physiology. X-ray crystallography detected metallic inclusions embedded in bone tissue, microscopic threads of an unidentified alloy that appeared to have grown naturally within the skeletal structure. The investigation took a darker turn when detectives discovered a pattern in the missing persons reports that had been overlooked for years. Each victim had been reported missing not once, but multiple times by different people. Michelle Valdez had been reported missing by her mother in 2003, by her sister in 2004, and by a friend in 2005. Each report described Valdez disappearing under different circumstances from different locations on different dates. Similar patterns emerged for other victims. Rosa Martinez had been reported missing 7 times between 2001 and 2006 by various family members and acquaintances. Each report was filed by someone who insisted they had seen Martinez alive after the previous disappearance report. The official records created a timeline that suggested the victims had been living parallel existences, disappearing and reappearing in different social circles without apparent connection. Detective Lopez's final report, classified immediately upon submission, documented the discovery that ended the active investigation. While examining the deepest burial site, excavation teams uncovered a metal object buried 6 feet below the deepest set of remains. The object was a corroded bronze disc inscribed with symbols that resembled no known writing system. Carbon dating placed the artifact's creation at approximately 1,500 years before the earliest known human settlement in the region. More unsettling was what happened when the disc was removed from the burial site. Within 24 hours, ground-penetrating radar detected new underground voids forming throughout the mesa. The existing burial sites began showing signs of recent disturbance, despite being under continuous surveillance. Sand and soil around the graves started shifting in patterns that suggested movement from below. The case was transferred to federal jurisdiction without explanation. FBI behavioral analysts concluded that the West Mesa killer represented a new category of serial offender whose methods defied conventional profiling. The official determination cited insufficient evidence to pursue prosecution, but internal documents suggested the investigation had encountered phenomena beyond the scope of criminal justice procedures. Local residents reported increased unusual activity in the months following the discovery. Hikers described hearing sounds of digging coming from areas that showed no signs of excavation when investigated. Several people claimed to have seen figures moving across the mesa at night, always in groups of 12, always walking in single file toward the burial ground. The most disturbing reports came from family members of the victims. Multiple relatives insisted they had received phone calls from their deceased loved ones in the weeks after the remains were identified. The calls came from numbers that had been disconnected for years. The voices were described as familiar but changed, speaking in patterns that suggested knowledge of events that occurred after their deaths. Maria Sandoval, the witness who had reported seeing Michelle Valdez in 2 places simultaneously, disappeared 3 months after providing her statement. Her family filed a missing persons report, but investigating officers noted that Sandoval had been reported missing twice before, once in 1998 and again in 2004. Each time, she had eventually reappeared with no memory of where she had been. The burial ground remains sealed by federal order. Satellite imagery shows the Mesa apparently unchanged, but spectral analysis reveals electromagnetic anomalies that intensify during certain lunar phases. The patterns suggest ongoing activity beneath the surface, as if something continues to move through the underground spaces that shouldn't exist. What do you think really happened to Maria Sandoval after she witnessed the impossible, seeing the same victim in two places at once? Subscribe to explore more cases where reality bends beyond recognition.